Welcome back. It is time to Ask the Vet, where we try to answer some questions that you may have about caring for your household pet. Dr. John Fott joins us once again from the Firehouse Animal Health Center in West Austin. We had a Great Dane on our show a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
And today we have a St. Bernard puppy. Isn't he the cutest thing? This is Player, right?
Sinclair.
Sinclair. Oh, Sinclair. Okay.
Sinclair. He's 10 weeks old.
10 weeks old. And he's already this big. I mean, you look at the paws on this thing.
Yeah.
He's going to be a big boy.
Yep.
Talk about, when it comes to caring for these large breeds, how different that can be.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we tend to talk about, and a lot of this has to do with the development. There's a lot of debate now on kind of how to feed them and all that kind of stuff, because we know that some of these dogs will develop with orthopedic conditions. There's some diseases called panosteitis and hypertrophic osteodystrophy that we see in large breed dogs as they grow quickly.
Yeah. And talk about, can you guard against those problems?
Well, there are. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the debate is a lot of it is about nutrition. I think it's natural for us to assume that these guys may need more protein or more calcium for their growing bones and that kind of stuff. And I think that's the theory that we've always had. And a lot of the literature and research now is saying that it's actually the opposite, that a lot of times they don't need as higher levels of protein, or they don't need as high calcium levels, because those tend to lead to some of these diseases that we see.
Yeah, and as these dogs get older, how does the care differentiate?
Yeah, so there are other things that we can see as these guys get older too. I mean, one of the things people talk a lot about is hip dysplasia, which can affect a lot of large breed dogs. Hip dysplasia is a genetic factor, and so it's something that tends to show up by the time they're 2 years of age. A lot of dogs, we don't really see symptoms of that though until later on, when that can kind of predispose them to certain arthritic conditions.
And how much, when you're talking about these large breed dogs, how much activity are we talking?
Well, I think that large breed dogs encompasses a lot of different breeds, some that require more activity than others.
Right.
But, these guys are working dogs in the mouth. I mean, they're not just bred to be couch dogs. At the same time, they're not like the Labrador chasing the ball in the park every day. So it's a different type of work, but plenty of exercise.
He's not a working dog right now.
He's pretty lazy.
He's pretty chill right now. So when you're talking about the hip dysplasia, how do you manage that?
There are a lot of things that you can do. I think most of those cases we kind of medically manage because the dogs aren't that bothered. So we use natural things like glucosamine, chondroitin, fish oil. A lot of those things have anti-inflammatory effect and help slow down the degeneration of the joint itself. There are, in severe cases, in young dogs that are really problematic early on, there are certain surgeries that can be done that can only be done when they're young. But then later in life, there's also other surgical options if you need them, like a total hip replacement, which is a pretty amazing thing that you can give a synthetic joint basically to the dog's hip.
What's the recovery like on that?
It's a big surgery, it's a big undertaking, but once they heal, which is usually, the healing process is probably a couple of months. Once they get through that, I mean, I've seen a lot of those dogs that they do great.
And Sinclair will be about how big, you think?
Well, we know that the mom and dad are 130 and 150 pounds, so I'm guessing somewhere around.
Somewhere in that range. All right. Dr. John Fott from the Firehouse Animal Health Center in West Austin, and Sinclair, our St. Bernard puppy, with us today. If you have a question that you would like us to ask, send your questions to askthevet@kxan.com. We'll be right back.